Hello, and welcome back to this week's episode of Tech Tips. My name is Lucas Morneau, and I'm the production manager here at Struts Gallery. Today, we'll be taking a look at the Canon EOS Rebel T1i, a compact DSLR camera perfect for those just learning digital video. So, let's take a look. The Canon EOS Rebel T1i is a 15.5 megapixel APS-C DSLR camera. It is able to capture images as large as 4,768 by 3,174 pixels, or roughly 15.9 by 10.6 inches. In the case, the Canon T1i comes packed with the battery charger as well as the Canon EFS 18-55mm f3.5 to 5.6 lens. Much like the other cameras available to rent from Struts and Fawcett, the T1i utilizes the Canon's EF mount, so you'll be able to utilize the rest of the lenses available. The Canon T1i has an ISO range of 100 to 3200 and is expandable up to 12,800. Compared to other cameras available from Struts, the Canon T1i, like other Canons, produces less noise than other non-Japanese video cameras. So while you'll be able to get better resolution with something like the Blackmagic Production 4K camera, you'll actually have better noise performance with the T1i. It is also able to shoot 3.4 photos per second. Not too fast, but fast enough for some photographers. The T1i, like its siblings the 60 and 70, is able to control its neutral picture profile to mimic Canon C-Log. In fact, you'd be able to pair these three cameras together to create a great multicam setup color-wise. Much like the other cameras, we'll make these changes so that sharpness is set to 0, contrast set to -4, saturation set to -2, and color tone set to 0. There might be one thing that gets in the way of a multicam setup, however. While this camera records at 1080p, the max frame rate is 20 frames per second. Who shoots 20 frames per second, right? And not only that, but at 720p, you still can't choose a different frame rate. The T1i locks you in at 30 frames per second. Therefore, if you're using this for a multicam setup, it's best to shoot at 720p and just to frame the 720p video in a 180 frame. Also, you only have a max continuous recording time of roughly 13 minutes, so this camera might actually be a bit hard to use in multicam. The Canon T1i uses the MPEG-4 codec and records in a .mov container. This codec is a lower quality than the 70 and 60s H.264, so be aware of that if you're using it for a multicam setup. I say all of this negative stuff about this camera, but honestly, this is a great camera for those learning DSLR cameras. The camera is super easy to use in comparisons to professional cameras like the Canon C100 and even the Canon 6D and 7D. It's a great way to learn ISO, aperture, shutter speed, and focus without feeling too overwhelmed. The Canon T1i features only a few ports, including mini HDMI, AV out digital via mini USB, and an M3 shutter release. Sadly, the T1i is lacking a 3.5mm jack for both recording with an external microphone and for monitoring audio. Next, I'll show you how to control the white balance, ISO, aperture, picture profile, and more. First, we'll turn on the camera by flicking the switch on the top right. Above this is a dial for different shooting settings. If we are looking to record video, we'll turn this knob so that the white mark lines up with the video capture preset. If you're looking to shoot photos, I recommend the M for manual setting. Once we're in the video setting, since this is a beginner level camera, everything is set automatically. So you can record now if you want. However, we should look at our resolution and picture profile. Push the Set button in the middle of the directional pad, and we'll push down until we get to picture profile. The neutral profile is already set to mimic Canon C-Log, so no need to fix it if we're using neutral. If we need to change it, use the scroll wheel on the grip to change the profile. We'll push down twice again to reach the resolution. Again, if we need to change from, let's say, 180p to 720p, use the scroll wheel. For those shooting with the M mode and looking to change our ISO, white balance, aperture, and shutter speed, we'll be using the grip scroll wheel a lot. Simply turning the wheel by itself changes our shutter speed. To change ISO, click the ISO button next to the grip wheel and then turn the wheel. To change the white balance, we'll push the top button on the directional pad. Here, we have a few presets as well as a custom white balance setting. To set the custom white balance setting, we have to root through the menu a bit, so honestly, I would recommend for beginners to stick to automatic white balance for the time being. Finally, to change the aperture, we'll hold the AV button and scroll with the scroll wheel. Now, let's go over the pros and cons of the Canon T1i. And like the Canon 7D, this camera's age is working against it. On the upside, the T1i is perfect for beginners, as many of the settings are automatic, so beginners won't feel as overwhelmed. It has a compact body, making it easy to handle and mount. And being able to control the picture profile makes this camera work well for multicam. On the downside, what makes this camera hard to use for multicam is the fact that at 1080p, this camera only shoots at a sluggish 20 frames per second. This, paired with an awful codec, makes this video hard to use in today's video market. Again, this is all from the camera's age, as digital video wasn't as big of a thing in 2009 when this camera was released. As such, the camera also lacks audio input and output. And while this is a great camera for beginners, the lack of manual control makes it hard to really progress in one's video journey. In conclusion, the Canon T1i is an easy-to-use camera that's great for those starting their video journey. For more information about the Canon T1i, as well as other equipment available to rent from Struts, links are in the description box below. My name is Lucas Morneau, this is Tech Tips, and I wish you all the best. I wonder if anyone's going to make a comment about the glasses.